Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's another example of a budget that you might be expected to go through on a test and answer some questions for. So let's read through it and we'll answer questions based on the information we're given. So it says Savannah is taking courses in Calgary. She lives with her parents and they pay her tuition. Her net monthly income as a waitress is $1,203.12. All right, awesome. So that's good to know. That is her net monthly income right here. Let me use my pen. Her income is right there. It says the charts below show her monthly and annual expenses. So here are her monthly expenses. Things like room and board. So, she's paying for rent. Cell phone, clothing, gifts, eating out, personal care, car payments, gas and maintenance, computer supplies, entertainment, magazines and music, and savings. Those are monthly expenses. And then these annual expenses, books and supplies, and car insurance. Annual expenses, of course, the word annual means it is yearly. Oh, writing is so bad on there. It's yearly. And so this books and supplies, if I wanted to get a monthly number for that, I would divide that by 12. And for car insurance, I would also divide that by 12 to get a monthly number because we want actually a monthly number for the budget that we're doing. And so monthly for books and supplies, if you divide 590 by 12, you get 49.1, if we round it 7, 49.17. And for car insurance, if we take 775 and divide it by 12, we get $64. 64. Whoops. Oh, this is why I go through and type most of this out. Go back to my pen here. $64.58. Okay, so we have some monthly expenses, some annual expenses, but we've broken it down into a monthly fee. Now, question A says, use the charts to create a monthly budget for Savannah. It wants us to list the income, the fixed expenses, the variable expenses, and include the monthly cost of annual expenses. It wants us to record the surplus or deficit. So it's going to ask, is it a surplus or a deficit? And then it says circle to show whether the amount is a surplus or deficit. Well, we're just going to show it. So if we go back to this budget here, okay, we need to determine what are the fixed expenses and what are the variable expenses. So something like room and board, do you think that's a fixed or variable expense? Make your choice. I would call it a fixed expense, and I've used F to label it as fixed, okay? Cell phone bill, I would probably label that as fixed as well. Clothing, clothing for me would be variable. I'm not going to spend the same amount of money on clothing every month. Gifts is going to change, so variable. Eating out, going to a restaurant, which would be super nice right now, but of course we can't at the moment, but that's okay, is variable. Personal care. Personal care is variable because it depends on what you need to buy. A car payment. A car payment is typically fixed. It's not going to change. Gas and maintenance, now that will change, so that's variable. Computer supplies, I'm guessing that's variable. I'm not sure what she means by computer supplies, but you're not going to usually budget $20 a month for computer supplies, so variable. Entertainment would be variable. Magazines and music would be variable, and savings is fixed, should be fixed. Now, for annual expenses, things like books and supplies, of course, that's going to vary, so it's variable. For car insurance, I would call fixed because it's not necessarily going to change for the year. Okay, so based on that information, let's create a budget. And so in the budget, we're going to have our monthly income. and the monthly income was $1203.12. That's what she makes as a waitress. Our total fixed expenses, if we go through and add room and board, cell phone, car payments, savings, and car insurance, but divided by 12, we get a total of $614.06. Again, I just added all of those numbers that are fixed together. Total variable expenses, I've taken all of my variable expenses and I've added them together to get $509.17, which gives me a total of $1123.23. If I round everything, I get a total of $1123.23 when I add those two fixed and variable expenses together. So is this a surplus or a deficit? Well, you should be able to see that we have more monthly income than we do total expenses. So I'm going to have a surplus. But to find out how much, I need to take the income and subtract the expenses. So the income was $1203.12. I'm going to subtract $1123.23. And that will get me $79.89 in the positive, which means we have a surplus. So that's good for her right now. She's running a budget that has about $80 left over, and that's with all of her kind of expenses accounted for, things like eating out and entertainment. So that's really good. She has some money left over, so she could just save that money, put it in the bank probably. B says, though, in the second year, so second year of school, Savannah will pay her tuition of $1,850. She also has a car repair that she charged on her credit card. Okay, so her car broke down and she had to repair it, which happens. And instead of her parents paying her tuition in the second year, she's paying it herself, $1,850. The monthly payment for 1 year is $79.83. The monthly payment that's on her credit card charge is $79.83. Will her monthly budget be a surplus or a deficit? So we have to take her monthly budget that we had for the first year here, and we have to include some new things for the second year. So her tuition and the car repair. Okay. So her income will stay the same. We're going to assume it's the same, $1203.12. Her expenses are now going to include the $1123.23 that we had from the first year. That was the monthly budget from the first year. We're going to add her tuition of $1,850. The thing is, that is annual. So I'm going to divide it by 12. So if I take $1,850 and divide it by 12, I get $154.17. And then her car repair monthly was $79.83. So when I add all of those things together, I'm going to get expenses for the month of $1,357.23, which is not good. We can see now that if her income stayed the same, we are going to be running a deficit. To find that, of course, I take the totals, I take the income, I subtract the expenses, and I find I have a negative number, negative $154.11. That means she is running a deficit. So she's going to have to try and figure out how to make $154.11 more, either in her income or reduce her expenses. So that's what question C says. What budget changes could Savannah make to reduce expenses? Well, if you look at the budget, there's some stuff you might be able to say. And on a test, you wouldn't have to say exactly everything that I would say, as long as it makes sense. What I'm going to say is, like, look at her entertainment budget. It's $100 a month. Maybe she reduces that. Maybe she stops buying magazines and music, things like that. So here, she could reduce expenses like eating out, entertainment, and magazines and music. That would be an acceptable answer. All right, I hope this all makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions.